I got so thirsty.
I was so dehydrated.
You did it. You're good.
They can hear us. They can hear us. Yeah.
I don't want to use this.
Can you tuck this in? I think that's our cue. Good? Okay, awesome. Hey everybody, good afternoon. Take your seats. Thanks for coming to our session. My name is Heather Rist Murphy. I am the VP of Brand and Consumer Engagement at Collective Measures.
And I'm Abby McNally. I'm Director of Connection Strategy and Brand Media.
Because this is a presentation about audience, Abby and I thought it would be fun if we introduce ourselves using some of our own persona attributes. I am female, age 35 to 44. I have 2 small children. I live in the Minneapolis-St. Paul DMA. I work in marketing, and I am passionate about health and wellness.
And I am female, 35 to 44. I'm a mom of 2 small children. I live in the Minneapolis-St. Paul DMA. I work in marketing, and I'm passionate about health and wellness. On paper, Heather and I are practically identical. But in reality, our buying behaviors are very different. This highlights a crucial truth. While demographic personas provide a valuable foundation, a more holistic approach to audience strategy is necessary to maximize its impact. In today's presentation, we'll explore how to go beyond the traditional persona to uncover deeper audience insights, segment more effectively, and build a roadmap for immediate and long-term growth. Let's dive in.
Awesome. There are 8.2 billion people in this world. There are 333 million people in the US. It's safe to say that not all of these people are right for your brand. So how do you determine who is? Audience strategy and research. This is the process of uncovering insights about your current customer, about your potential customer, learning about things like who they are, what they do, what they think and feel, and then applying those insights on top of a plan to find and engage them. But how do we do that? Well, meet Jane. Jane is a persona. More specifically, Jane is a buyer persona, which means that she is a representation of an ideal customer created through audience and market research. If you are like many of us in this room, you likely have your own version of Jane. And if you do, you know that creating her took time and effort. And that's because Jane is made up of behavioral insights. She's made up of demographics, interest challenges, all the things that we as marketers want to understand about our audiences so we can find them, but most importantly, so we can get inside of their minds and understand what attracts them to products and services. Jane is the core audience for an electric bike brand that has been experiencing rapid growth over the last several years. This brand wants to understand many different things about their core persona Jane, including the fact that she lives in an urban area where traffic is always an issue and parking is expensive. Or the fact that she is active and environmentally conscious, meaning that she actually makes her decisions based on sustainability and reducing her carbon footprint. Jane is a millennial. So she is oftentimes on social media, scrolling like we all do at night, and she's often discovering new products, services, ideas through that, through her influencers, through online reviews. For Jane, investing in her environmental beliefs and having a solution to her commuting issues is buying an electric bike. For the electric bike brand, understanding Jane is the path to learning and finding more customers like her. Now, we can see how having a core audience or core persona is very important, and it is. But in reality, we really have to push beyond Jane to understand our full audience opportunity. And to do that, we have to first understand how we want to use our audience representations. So for example, Jane guides creative concepting for many different brand campaigns, or she helps to guide the different marketing and media partnerships to drive brand awareness. Yet focusing only on Jane may make it so that we can't actually find everyone like her within all marketing executions. And it most certainly will make it so that we can't find our potential and future customers. That's why it's important to pair Jane with our different customer segments, usually created by different behavior signals, or our additional motivation-based buyer personas. This is where we start to get to our potential audiences that we'll talk about in a moment. And lastly, and maybe most surprisingly, the unidentified hand raisers who are interested in an electric bike, but don't fall into any of our prior audience research. So I think the long story short is that it is no longer a single persona landscape, nor is it enough for us to just focus on our perfectly segmented customer audiences to drive revenue. Today, brands have to both know their current customer and understand the full audience opportunity. This may sound like marketing 101, but the complexity of this and the true growth potential comes in understanding how our audiences are defined and how they're acted on. And doing this requires a balance, just like many things in marketing and communications. It requires a strategic balance between using your current audience data and stretching beyond traditional data sets like behaviors and demographics so that you can capture the audiences that your segmentation and core personas are missing. In other words, we really have to start investing in all of our audiences, understanding the ones that even are unidentified, so that they invest in us. It sounds like a simple concept, but let's see if it's simple in execution. So we're back to audience research and strategy. Audience strategy is important because it improves our targeting and our relevancy. It enhances customer experience. It strengthens brand loyalty. And I think this is the one that's most important. It fuels data-driven marketing and decision-making. That's really important. So for the rest of this presentation, Abby and I are going to focus on two core components of audience strategy. We're going to focus on how we can identify additional insights about our audiences. And we're also going to focus on how we can activate on those insights. Before we do that, though, this work is ongoing, and if you ever start to lose sight of why you're investing in it or why you're doing it, or you need to convince your leadership to do so, this is the formula to remember. So pairing audience insights with the right activation experience is the secret to business growth.
So how do we actually dig in and identify these audience insights through research? As Heather illustrated for us, the term audience can have infinite meanings, and your audience segments likely span different demographics, psychographics, and motivations. A successful audience strategy requires marketers to take a broad lens to fully capture the opportunity available. This requires you to go beyond who your customer is today. Now, that's not to say that you should abandon your Jane. She is and should be a guiding light for many of your marketing efforts. However, understanding audiences that don't fall squarely into your Jane persona can give you a competitive edge and set you up for long-term growth. So start with your Jane. Learn everything you can about her. Understanding Jane will help you find and convert more customers like her. From there, look at your potential audiences and customers. Who's in market for your products or services but are not yet your current customer? Who are your competitors' customers, and how do they differ from yours? These insights can inform not only your targeting strategy, but also guide things like brand positioning and product development. And next, think more long-term. Who's your next generation of customers? Is it Gen Z, Gen Alpha? Start to understand their interests, their media consumption habits, their demographic makeup, so that when it comes time to talk to them, you have a clear understanding of who they are, how to reach them, and what motivates them. So how do we actually learn about these current potential and future audiences? This takes a multi-layered approach that provides a holistic view of who they are and what they do, their motivations and mindsets, and how they interact with the world. Let's start with the basics, who they are and what they do. This is the foundation of most audience work, and it's really vital in understanding the basic makeup of your core audiences. Psychographics, demographics, buying behavior, media consumption habits data can all be found through a mix of syndicated sources like MRI, YouGov, and GWI, as well as through digital media platforms and even your first-party data. When paired together, these insights can inform your targeting strategy, your messaging approach, and your media mix. But things start to get really interesting when you begin to analyze the similarities and differences between your current, potential, and future customers. You can identify when to lean into these similarities to drive efficiency and scale, and when a more personalized approach is needed. Take our e-bike example. Perhaps we learned through our research that 30% of all e-bike purchasers in the last year were adults age 55 plus that live in suburban areas. That's a huge untapped market that we're completely missing if we're focused solely on our millennial metropolitan Jane. And the way that this new segment, let's call her Bev, prefers to learn about products and brands differs from Jane too. Jane looks to influencers for recommendations and indexes high against podcast listening. Bev, on the other hand, puts more trust in traditional media channels and spends more time watching linear TV than streaming. However, both audiences are very active on social media. Understanding these nuances can help shape how you reach and influence different audience segments.
To further understand our audience, it's important that we start to push past behavior and demographics. Those things are really important. But we must start thinking about things that Audrey talked about, like preferences. So in other words, what that means is thinking about our customers' motivations or their mindsets. So what a mindset might mean is thinking about how somebody is thinking along their journey, how they're feeling, what they're doing, and pairing all of that together to be an effective roadmap for you. And the reason being is because people are complex. So we do things, many different things that really drive us and drive our emotions. Because the last thing that we want to do is be one of those companies that sees their customers as a number and not as a human. That's when the company becomes part of the noise to the very people that they are trying to attract. The electric bike company, they understand this, and this is why they've leaned into doing research to identify different motivations that drive people to purchase an electric bike. These are those motivations. They conducted a large quantitative survey and did an analysis to understand what are the primary things driving people to purchase. So I'm not going to share all the data with you because that would take all day, but I'm just going to share a few different things that came from that survey so that you can start to understand what drives people towards those motivations. So for example, they learned that 57% of the people on their bike journeys, it's really hilly, and an electric bike would make that easier for them and they'd want to go further. That points to the primary motivation of convenience. We found that 44% of people say that an electric bike is cheaper than having a car. And so that points to the cost effectiveness motivation. And so when we can start to understand that is when we can both tap into understanding what messaging can capture our audiences, but also it's what unlocks additional audiences for us. For example, so people who had a primary motivation of environmental benefits, so think like zero emissions or reducing traffic, those are what we can call an eco-conscious audience, right? This is something that we've actually heard before in this presentation. It's Jane, and it's important to learn more about Jane, but what if we kept going? So people who are interested in health and fitness as a primary motivation to buy an e-bike, like think exercise, mental health, accessibility, we found in the survey that actually the majority of people who are interested in this motivation or had this motivation were 55 plus. We've heard that before too in the demographic and behavior portion. It's Bev, and so on and so forth. So you can actually see here that beyond Jane and Bev, there's additional audience opportunity just solely driven by the motivations that your customers have. Of course, there's going to be overlap, but there's a lot of flexibility to play and test with messaging to understand what resonates most. Now, motivations are great, and I think they absolutely need to be part of the audience research. However, what I am really drawn to is understanding somebody's mental model or their mindset. So when you think about this, a mental model might be something like how somebody's thinking, what they're feeling, what they're doing, and all of those things together really create an impactful story to understand how to reach them and get in front of them. So take our eco-conscious audience, which is Jane. And let's think about her journey, which is never, ever, ever this linear, but it's a presentation, so here it is, from awareness to post-purchase of her e-bike. Starting to do the research, which, by the way, search and social data is so powerful to understand different questions that people have along their journey and start to understand how they're thinking. It's right there, fingertips, they're on their phone, they're giving all of that information. As marketers and communicators, we should be grabbing that through social listening and making insights from them. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the way she's thinking comes out in a lot of different questions along her journey. So what is the battery range? What is the company's policy on battery recycling? Do I need a warranty? Understanding these things mean that we as a brand, or the electric bike brand in this example, can actually meet Jane with different content, with different experiences, and have her resonate and move through her journey easier than she did before. I know I said this before, but now the magic actually really comes in pairing the think with the feel. And so this is how Jane and users like her are feeling throughout this electric bike journey. So you can see actually in decision that she is feeling hopeful, meaning that what we can do as marketers with that is we can say, okay, in this decision phase, she wants to be met with inspiring stories, or she wants to be met with impact stories. We can kind of play into that hopefulness. But when she moves into decision, she starts to feel anxious. So if we understand her emotion there, we can meet her with clear data, we can meet her with visualization, and we can just move her through her path to purchase to feel the most confident that she can. So you can see how this becomes a map to overlay on top of your content and experiences to identify what you need to do to better engage and reach your audiences. Okay, this last one here, how they interact with the world. This one is sometimes paired with audience strategy and research, sometimes not. We actually think this is really important, and this work actually can be done without a specific audience in mind. It can be done in a more holistic manner to apply to all of your audiences. It's just something that you as marketers and communicators need to be aware of. So we break this down into two different areas, macroeconomic factors and micro trends. Audrey was talking about this. You can be part of two different groups when it comes to this. You can be part of the companies that see the behavior shifts as they're happening, and you start to say, oh, that is how our consumers are reacting, let's go this way. It's like a react approach, and that's okay. Or you can be part of the companies that are investing in learning about these so that you can say, hey, look, this is happening down the line. How are we going to redirect or navigate or understand how our customers might be reacting to us at this time? So I think it was 11%, 11% increase in grocery prices, I think is what Audrey just said. I mean, I certainly feel that. I don't know if you guys do. But an 11% increase in grocery prices means that audiences have less disposable income to spend on other brands or products, depending who they are. And so it's really important to understand that type of thing. Next, micro trends. This is really awesome work that can be done just to understand insights about your audiences overall, or about how the industry is changing, et cetera, et cetera. So the different things that I'm going to talk about in here is brand, we're going to talk about category, we're going to talk about topics and moments. And all of this can be done with lots of different insights or lots of different data sources, I guess. But again, we always go back to that search and social insights because it's so relevant and it's so the voice of the customer or the consumer. So for example, if we're pairing brand insights with an audience strategy, it might look like, what are people talking about within the sustainability space for electric bikes? What is the sentiment around there? Who are the brands that are showing up? What should we know about that? Category. Is it about cost? Is it about innovation? What in the category is happening that we need to be aware of? Topics. Marketing and communications must focus on the different topics that are happening within the landscape to understand how to drive their content forward. So are people talking about charging electronic bikes? Is there a pain point within there? What are the sentiment and topics that are coming out of this research that start to appear that we can say, oh wait, we don't have anything about how good our battery charging life is? That might be a differentiator. We need to lean into that. Moments. So this is something that's going to come out in any user research or anything like that, but understanding like what are those triggers? What are the triggers that make somebody part of your audience set? Is it them moving into an urban area? Are they starting a family? Like what are those different moments? And you generally can see those things. I mean, I know that we think like Reddit is really a big spot for like collecting that data and that information, but like understanding what those moments are.
But you don't have to stop there. Data and insights can come from anywhere. With the explosion of generative AI, marketers now have a new tool at their fingertips to analyze data and uncover new insights. Brands like McDonald's and Coca-Cola are even using astrology to anticipate consumer behavior. These businesses are analyzing planetary transits to help inform them of how future transits could impact the economy and consumer trends. And in the next 5 years, we'll likely have new tools at our fingertips to help us learn more about our audiences. So keep an open mind. It only takes one smart insight to give you a competitive edge. Analyzing your current, prospective, and future customers through the lens of who they are and what they do, their motivations and mindsets, and how they interact with the world can help you understand how these audiences are similar and how they're different, which can uncover opportunities for scale and efficiencies and highlight situations that require personalization. So now that we've learned about our current, future, and potential customers and identified some key insights, how do we actually activate them in our marketing plans? Marketers can maximize the impact of their audience insights by leveraging them in both their push and pull strategies, by understanding how to balance segmentation and scale, and by using as a filter to maximize impact. Your audience strategy can have countless applications to inform both push and pull efforts. Audience insights should be used to identify who your audiences are and where to find them so you can effectively push your message out to them. Media consumption habits can inform things like media mix and your inventory approach to ensure that your message is reaching or is in the right place. Demographic and psychographic learnings can inform things like your targeting strategy to ensure that you're reaching the right people. Category trends and consumer behavior can inform your flighting strategy to ensure that your message is reaching your audience at the right time. But your audience strategy should also be used to inform content creation and to build experiences that pull audiences in. Use motivation and mindset learnings to develop messaging that resonates with audiences throughout their entire consumer journey. Understand search behavior and create website content that answers key questions to ensure visibility in the search ecosystem. Use trending topics to optimize your social platforms and capture hand raisers. But in reality, it's impossible to build push and pull strategies for each and every audience segment. As marketers, we need to find the right balance between segmentation and scale so that we can effectively spend our marketing dollars on our key audiences while still leaving the door open for hand raisers and new audiences. Leaning into Jane, and Bev is really essential when you have to create a compelling message that resonates and represents your current customers and their values. Whether you're developing a brand TV spot or a piece of informational content, segmentation ensures relevance and drives performance against your key audiences. From there, you can fill in the gaps by casting a wide net through performance media and algorithm-based channels to find audiences who don't necessarily fit nicely into one of your personas or segments, but are likely to be your next customer. In fact, trying to force audience profiles into platforms like Google and Meta can sometimes do more harm than good. These platforms are built on algorithms that are great at finding your next best customer, often better than we are. So don't try to fight them. Let them do their thing by casting a wide net and optimizing towards your desired result.
So by now, I think it's clear that investing in audience research and strategy is really important for marketing and communications. But this strategy is also really important to use as a relevancy filter. So that means that you can overlay it on top of campaigns, business initiatives, and make sure that you keep your audience in mind. because the last thing we want to do is unintentionally frustrate our audience or come off as tone deaf. So whether you're going to use this research and these insights to proactively guide your strategies or reactively be a filter, it's really important to keep it front and center. So that brings us to our conclusion, but we want to make sure, Abby and I want to make sure that if you leave with a few things, that they are these. So go beyond your customer today. There's no longer a single persona landscape, nor is it enough to have perfectly segmented audiences. You must push past and find the full audience opportunity. Use multiple different data sources to have a holistic view of your audiences. So whether that's current, whether that's potential, whether that's future, understanding who they are, what they do, what they think and feel is all really, really important. Balance segmentation with scale. Abby just talked about this. It's great to use segmentation. It's great to use your core persona as Jane. Targeting is awesome. We're all marketers. We get that. However, we really have to let the campaign scale and the algorithms do their things, because oftentimes they're better at finding our core customers than maybe some of our campaigns are, and they absolutely will find those unidentified hand raisers. And then lastly, make sure that you're using it as a filter to stay as relevant as you can. Thank you very much for listening to our whole presentation. Let's see if we have Q&A. If anybody has any questions, or potentially we answered them all, which is awesome too. Oh, yeah. Oh, hey. Hi.
Good. Hi, guys.
Hi.
I am just curious, with all of this conversation around audience targeting, reaching people in the right mindset, how are you guys thinking about contextual targeting in conjunction with all of this?
Great question.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big part of it. And with cookie deprecation still happening, maybe less so than we anticipated, I think it will still play a big role. And that's where some of that audience media consumption behavior comes in, understanding where your audiences are and ensuring that your message is the right fit contextually. So I think, layering on all of those data sets and understanding what partnerships makes most sense for your brand and represent your brand well, but also intersect with your audience and where they're consuming their media. Contextual plays a really big role in that.
Good question. All right, y'all. Thank you for coming and listening. Let us know if you have any questions after the whole shebang as well. Thanks so much.